Hey everyone, my name is Lukas and I'm from Gnosis Safe, and I'm going to talk today about basically Gnosis Safe and how we were navigating this new multi-chain future that we're in, and yeah, what challenges we also faced on the way. Maybe first a little show of hand, who knows what Gnosis Safe is? Okay, about 2/3. Who actually uses Gnosis Safe? Okay, so roughly half of the people here. For the other ones, I would just give like a little introduction, like what Gnosis Safe is, why we're building it. Yeah, so you're up to speed. Basically, we're trying at Gnosis to solve some challenges that are inherent to Web3. Like we all know, Web3 is the future. It's partly already here. Obviously, it has a lot more potential. But there are some roadblocks on the way that we need to solve. A few of them are here. Like private keys are basically the way how most people today interact with Ethereum through wallets such as MetaMask or Ledger. They often get lost, they get stolen. That's obviously something we don't want to have in the future, if possible. Then there's dApps that are like a very critical point where often there's attackers intercepting through phishing attacks, website hijacking. Then the Web3 ecosystem for newcomers, it's very fragmented. People don't know where to go, what are trusted sources, like what are trusted dApps. And then finally, signing transactions, which is integral part of like interacting with Web3. It's very confusing. It involves learning about gas limit, gas price, a lot of complexity that's quite hard to navigate as a newcomer. And we're basically, with Gnosis Safe, we're working on like these and many more things that are just making the Web3 ecosystem like hard to navigate, like just less secure, less convenient. And yeah, Gnosis Safe is a smart contract account that's like compared to regular accounts, which most people are familiar with, that are basically private public key pairs, where all your digital assets that you store on this account, that your account has access to, are fully controlled through this private key. That's a very binary thing, meaning if you have access to the private key, you can do everything you want with the assets. If you don't have access to the private key, you can do nothing with it. If someone else gets access to your private key, they can do with your assets whatever they want. And like on the other side, we have smart contract accounts, and there basically the account is not controlled by a private key, but through code. And with code, you can do any kind of like permission system, access control scheme, whatever you would like to implement, as long as you can like implement this logic in Solidity as a smart contract, you can do so. And yeah, for like in general, I think smart contracts are the future of Ethereum and Web3. I think at some point all accounts will be smart contract accounts, and this is because there's like a lot of crucial benefits of them. One being what I already mentioned with programmable permissions. You can actually like set a permission that's different than just one key gives you access to everything. You can say there's multiple keys that have access to certain digital assets. That's also what maybe most of you know Gnosis Safe of today. That's multi-signature. That means like you have maybe 5 people, and you can say 3 of those 5 people can manage the assets on this account. But this is really just the beginning of what's possible with programmable accounts, because you can implement any kind of access control scheme, such as you can set spending limits for account, where like your account might be under this multi-signature scheme, where 3 out of 5 people can control the assets. But if the transaction is below a certain threshold, maybe 1 key is enough to conduct this transaction. You can even restrict the capabilities of an account. For example, you could say you want your account to only be able to interact with these set of addresses or these smart contracts. And if you want to change these restrictions, you would need to have like more than 4 people maybe confirming this change. And you can also implement some social recovery scheme or other recovery mechanism. That's all possible through this programmability of smart contract accounts. So that's like a big security benefit, but there's also convenience benefits of using smart contract accounts. For example, you can do transaction batching, which essentially means that you can take a multi-step process, such as opening a maker vault, and you can bundle this into one single Ethereum transaction. And this is just closer to what users would expect when they want to open a maker vault. They're not expecting to do like several transactions to do so. Like this is one logical action they want to do, and through smart contract accounts, something like this is possible. Another example would be if you're swapping tokens on some decentralized exchange. Often when you're doing that with ERC20 tokens, you first have to do an approve, and then you actually do the swap interaction with the AMM, and this can be bundled into one transaction. It's just more convenient to user. And then finally, one thing a lot of newcomers are struggling with when they interact with Web3 is the entire topic of gas. Like you need to understand what gas limit is, how to set the gas price like correctly. But yeah, this is going to get easier potentially with EIP 1559, but still not to a point where like it requires no prior knowledge to do so. But with smart contract accounts, you can actually implement gas abstraction. You can have a relayer mechanism, which would allow things such as like dApps could subsidize the transaction fees for their users, or they could have some sort of like balance on their account, and like every transaction would just deduct from this balance, but they wouldn't have to deal with some like gas limit, gas price parameters. Yeah, so I personally think that like in the future, everyone will be using smart contract accounts. Maybe today it's mainly teams, mainly DAOs who are leveraging this multi-signature capability. But because it's essentially programmable accounts, and it will, we will also like go into more like access control schemes that might be suitable for other user groups. In the future, it will be also like more individuals leveraging Gnosis Safe or other smart contract accounts. More complex companies, maybe traditional companies. We already see a lot of like venture funds using, for example, Gnosis Safe to manage their treasuries. So a lot of more user groups are like possible there, and they will interact with smart contract accounts with any kind of digital assets. It's not just ERC20 tokens and Ether. It's going to be NFTs, content. It's going to be digital identities, self-sovereign identities. It's going to be smart contracts and a lot more. Yeah. So I talked a little bit about like the contract level of smart contract accounts and specifically Gnosis Safe. And this is basically our user interface, which allows you to interact with Gnosis Safe accounts. And yeah, basically it allows you to see your balances, of course, your transactions, your settings, your policies that you have for your account. But it's also a way for you to take your account and interact with Web3 applications. So we've got this little dApp store integrated. And basically what this is that dApps are integrating an SDK that we provide, and that then allows users to interact with their Safe accounts with these dApps, and can leverage these programmable permissions such as multi-signature, which yeah, looks like that. You also have mobile apps, which you can use obviously to track your assets on the go, to see transactions that are incoming, but also where you can generate a new signer key, or you could import a signer key and actually use it as your signer device. Soon it will also allow you to connect the hardware wallet, such as Ledger, to sign with your mobile device. And yeah, some mobile apps. But there's also other projects that are building interfaces for Safe accounts. Just 2 weeks ago, Radical announced their Radical orgs, which basically allows you to create new Safe accounts that are controlling code bases. We also have Parcel and Multisafe, both targeting like a DAO treasury management use case, We've got the Lightning app, we've got Smart DeFi, and yeah. Then some stats for Gnosis Safe. There's currently more than 30 billion US dollar worth of digital assets stored. That's Ether plus ERC20 tokens, and that's only Ethereum layer 1. Granted, this goes up and down depending on the bull bear market, but yeah, right now it's a nice number to show. But also what's maybe more important is just the number of transactions that are made with smart contract accounts with Gnosis Safe. And this is definitely going up quite steadily over the last few months. And we've now approaching like a quarter of a million transactions made with Gnosis Safe, and about 27,000 safes that are deployed. So about layer 2, this happened earlier this year. Just a bunch of people asking us, when is Gnosis Safe coming to Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, Avalanche, you name it. We initially thought we have a little bit more time to decide where we're going to deploy Gnosis Safe, like what's the right networks to start with, because we thought Gnosis Safe is a tool that's used mainly, at least currently, to manage like a lot of funds, and we thought it's just first the ecosystems need to develop, the people need to start having actually a lot of funds on these networks before Gnosis Safe actually becomes relevant. But what we've definitely learned through the community feedback is that Gnosis Safe is also just an essential infrastructure tool, which is used to control like other smart contract systems. And so a lot of teams actually approached us and said like before they can deploy their dApps on another network, they want to have Gnosis Safe there, just to have not their like smart contracts be controlled just through one private key as an admin key, but have some added layer of security using Gnosis Safe. Definitely also the projects that are building these networks like learned about this request from users, and a few of them actually went ahead and just forked Gnosis Safe, which is perfectly fine. Everything we build is open source, exactly because of this reason. We don't want to be a gatekeeper. Yeah, not sure if they were aware all like what this actually means to host Gnosis Safe and maintain it and deal with customer requests. But yeah, a couple of them at least went ahead and fulfilled this gap in the market before we were able to do. Because we actually wanted to have something that's a little bit more scalable, which we can roll out to like more networks in an easier way. And one thing that was blocking us there is that the Gnosis Safe solution requires a tracing node in order to run. And we want to get rid of this requirement because some networks don't have tracing nodes available. And so we had to make some adjustments to the core contract of Gnosis Safe. Basically, this code change here, so we emit some transaction. When you make a transaction with Gnosis Safe, we emit this transaction data as an event. This just makes it possible to remove this tracing node requirement, which is a little bit more gas inefficient. That's why we didn't do it on Ethereum layer 1, but on sidechains at layer 2s, it's not that critical. So we added this. We then obviously had to do a contract audit, even though the change was rather minor, but like just our regular process. So we went ahead and did an audit, and we also updated our bug bounty program and increased the reward that people can get there. So now the max payout there is up to $1 million US. And yeah, this basically allowed us to now, last week actually, we were able to launch these networks, and we're now available with Gnosis Safe on Polygon, XDAI, BSC, and soon Arbitrum. Arbitrum, we're still waiting for the Arbitrum 1 launch, so the mainnet is available, but only for developers. But as soon as they open up for users, we will also launch Gnosis Safe. Yeah, this also means because we have this app store, and the app store is very specific to each network, because we're only displaying the apps that are available on this network. Yeah, which makes them also sort of like this app store is sort of now like an overview of like what apps are available, which goes back to this point I made initially, that the ecosystem is quite fragmented. People don't really have an overview what's available where. And like at least for Safe compatible apps, we now have this overview of like when you switch to the Safe on Polygon, let's say, you just see these apps available for that. And if you're building yourself an app that's multi-chain compatible, then definitely reach out to us and let us help you like integrate this SDK so we can also have your app there. Yeah. But now to the challenges. One challenge was definitely this. He's definitely right. Like having like a Gnosis Safe, it's like a proxy account and it's like a smart contract that you deploy to the blockchain, and it's only deployed on this one specific blockchain, meaning you have an address, safe address, which is basically similar to your MetaMask address, but this means that you only control a safe on this address on the network that you deployed it on, meaning that if you send assets to this safe address on a different network, you won't be able to access these assets. That's actually something that happened rather soon, even before we launched our like layer 2 networks last week. So we already had a few people that had safes on Ethereum mainnet, but they received assets on a different chain, and it was like we have some little trick how we could potentially recover these funds. Like we can deterministically deploy a safe at the same address on a different chain, but this means that the configuration which you deployed it like initially on the chain, so you deployed it on Ethereum mainnet with like these 5 owners, and then you changed maybe the owners on the Ethereum mainnet, and then you can deploy the same address at the same safe at the same address on a different network, but only with the initial owner structure. So that's why we're also not providing this as a feature, but rather as like a recovery thing, like a worst case fallback scenario. But yeah, this is definitely something that will get more critical as Safe will be available on more networks, that people need to understand that their Safe is only ever available on this one network. And the same challenge was also with bridges. Obviously, as like more of these sidechains and layer 2s emerged, there were new bridges, and they didn't really take into consideration smart contract accounts, so they always assumed like from where you send assets to the bridge on like the initial chain, that's the same address where the bridged assets will go on the recipient chain. And this is definitely not something that's working well with Gnosis Safe or any smart contract account. So we had to work together with those bridging providers that they at least warn the users that this is probably not a like smart thing to do. Yeah, but that just shows that smart contract accounts, they work a little bit differently than regular accounts, and hopefully we will get to a point where also app developers, infrastructure developers will take this more into consideration. There's actually quite a few problems with having addresses now in this like new multi-chain future. So one is that like smart contract accounts have a hard time dealing with that. But there's also other problems that some might have just a regular account, but they have a wallet that only supports like a certain set of networks. And that means that if someone sends assets to their address on a network that their wallet doesn't support, they also have a hard time getting access to it. They can still do it. They can import their private key in MetaMask and probably get to those assets, but it's still very inconvenient. Well, it also means that if I want to receive assets from someone and I want to receive these assets on a certain chain, like so far it was clear, I want to like get them on Ethereum mainnet, but as we have like more and more like side chains, layer 2s popping up, like I need to actually specify that so I don't receive the assets on whatever Binance Smart Chain where I don't even want to interact with. And that's just something like addresses are just not like clearly defined now. They're very ambiguous. They don't point to a specific account. They point to basically 20 accounts at the same time. Yeah, and from the sender side also this means that yeah, they basically need to ask the other person, hey, can I send you assets on Polygon, or where do you want to receive it? It's just some additional step, some unnecessary step, which we should solve as a community. And there's actually one proposal which would be able to help in this scenario, which is this chain agnostic IP 10, mainly driven by Pedro from Wallet Connect, and the most recent proposal here would make the chain ID like an integral part of the Ethereum or the address, and that would solve a lot of these problems I mentioned before, and would also make it possible that like safe users wouldn't have their funds stuck, and it would just mean I don't have to specify, or like I anyways need to specify on what chain I want to receive my assets if I want to ask for assets from someone else, and this would just make it a part of the address itself. So I really hope that we can like rally behind this or like a comparable solution, but I think this is going to be a long-term problem, and it's better that we raise awareness early on. Yeah. So a few takeaways. Yeah, try out Gnosis Safe on one of these networks. I mentioned XDAI, BSC, Polygon, and Arbitrum soon. So make sure to try that out. We're also interested to see like how this maybe will like bring more user groups to Gnosis Safe, where so far it was like $50 to deploy a safe, but with these sidechains and layer 2s, it will be much cheaper. So maybe more individual users will start using Safe. That's something we're looking forward to see. And yeah, let's definitely fix this ambiguity of addresses. It might impact us with the Gnosis Safe early on because it's just yeah, by its nature, but it will impact many other teams and many other products in the long run. So it's just better if we solve this early. And just in general, let's be more mindful of smart contract accounts when building dApps, when building infrastructure. It's not just these address things. Smart contract accounts, they can deal with some signature schemes, ETH sign, personal sign. They just behave in certain ways a little bit differently. And it's better to take this into account, as you've seen that smart contract accounts are gaining traction, and in my opinion, they will be the future of Web3. And it's just good to not have any bigger problems in the future, to just take them into consideration early on. Yeah, if you want to keep in touch, you can join our Discord, chat.gnosis.io. Also follow us on Twitter, and I'm going to be around for a couple of minutes outside if you want to talk to me, or you just like get in touch via Telegram or Twitter. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, there's time for questions. I'm not sure I fully understand why, like the difference between a smart account, a smart contract account, how come they cannot do the same as a regular account in terms of signing, and there is no way to update like the EVM to be able to actually get feature parity there to solve the problem?
I mean, that is potentially possible to make smart contract accounts more core of the protocol itself. There's also ambitions that go into that direction with account abstraction, like other initiatives, but this is like quite far ahead, maybe 2 years until we see this in reality. So we definitely have to bridge this point anyways.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, it was really interesting to see all those tweets that you showed of kind of people demanding that you like move the safe over to new chains and stuff. And so I was wondering how, if all this is open source, how are you able to sort of sustain yourself and keep building all this really cool stuff? Maybe you need some like retroactive funding or something in the future, like Vitalik said.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was definitely interesting what Vitalik told about like this retroactive funding opportunity. It's not something we have figured out right now. We can still sustain ourselves for a couple of years. but like long term, we are an open source project. It needs a way to be sustainable. Otherwise, it would just die away after some time. And there are some ideas floating around, but nothing too concrete. So I wouldn't mention them right now. But I mean, on a one-to-one basis, I could maybe talk about them outside.
Hi, I have a question for the dApp integration. The current integration you showed in the talk is that you kind of have an iframe within the Gnosis Safe domain. Is there any idea for some sort of SDK that I can inject some sort of Gnosis Safe contract in my site so that one UI is like it's a bit convoluted that I have to tell people to go to Gnosis site? Is there any way to use Gnosis within my app?
You can use Wallet Connect. The Gnosis Safe UI allows both on the web interface, but also on at least iOS, we have this feature where you can just connect the safe to a dApp via Wallet Connect.
Yeah, but that limits to certain implementation of the wallet.
Can you say that again?
That kind of limits to the Wallet Connect integrated one, but something like MetaMask, if most people like uses, for example, Uniswap, can you use, is there any way possible to have a, use Uniswap from Uniswap site using Gnosis Safe or something, rather than going to Gnosis Safe site and look at these icons and the iframe to it? It's just like a one-step burden for the accessibility, user experience, that I have to transfer user to your Gnosis Safe site so that they can access to my site. But I wonder if you...
What's different to using Wallet Connect to connect the safe to a dApp and using MetaMask or like any mobile wallet?
But MetaMask is a plugin. So unless you install for the first time, once a user installs MetaMask for the first time, they don't have to go to MetaMask site every time they access to a certain site. You don't have to go to MetaMask site to go to Aave or anything, right? So I'm just wondering, I'm just asking, if there's a technically possible or just plan what you haven't thought about, that's not in the roadmap. Yeah, I mean, we have thought about having some browser extension similar to MetaMask that would allow to do this. But yeah, we can explore this more, but I don't see much benefit over, if you use MetaMask mobile as a wallet, and you're also just using Wallet Connect to plug into dApps, I don't see a difference there really to, either it's a Chrome extension or it's a mobile app. You need some sort of software that allows you to plug into these dApps. Yeah, okay, thanks. But yeah.
Thanks. Hi, sorry. How do you guys regard yourself, compared to DAO constructors? Because, I mean, it looks so that for those teams who are planning to manage their funds, there's usually this decision that you have to make whether you would go to Aragon to deploy a DAO, and, have tokens, to market across your communities and so on, and have some additional features, and then yourselves, with probably limited functionality, but then easier way to actually set it up, deploy and run it. So are these different roads, or you guys are moving into some specific directions that would be closer to DAO infrastructure or whatever?
Yeah, we definitely saw that Gnosis Safe was more and more used this year by DAOs, and then it was a strategic decision: do we try to double down on DAOs, or do we try to go for a more broader vision? And we're actually doing kind of both now. We have at Gnosis, we have now two teams. One is Gnosis Safe Core, and the other, it's called Gnosis Zodiac at this point. Not sure if that's going to change, but Gnosis Zodiac is going to focus on building on top of this core infrastructure that we're building, the DAO tooling. And Gnosis Safe Core is focused on building kind of this permissioning protocol, this this operating system that goes below, which should be very modular, very flexible, very extensible, not just by this DAO tooling team, but by anyone. So it can become like the framework for the DAO tooling ecosystem, but it can also become the framework for like individuals managing their funds, or like big corporates, or like it's just like this thin layer, this access control layer. But like we want to have a designated team that's really focusing on this DAO tooling, and we are growing the team right now. If anyone is joining in, if anyone is interested in this topic, maybe I'm not the best person to talk to, but we have actually have another talk by Oren. He's heading this team, and yeah, definitely would like to get you in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.